It's your greatest year to date. That could get you that brand new car, extend and improve your home, take you away on that bucket list holiday, or just give you some peace of mind over the coming months. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the
unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
A really important thing about GB News, and it's brought something completely different to the landscape.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, the reality is that most British journalists are afraid. That's not GB News.
Journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
We're here to talk about things in a way that have never been broadcast on British airways before.
Do not miss a moment on GB News.
The #1 news channel in the country.
This is GB News. Up next, it's The Late Show Live with Ben Leo from Washington, D.C. We've got some breaking news happening there tonight. What's going on, Ben?
Yes, Steve, unfortunately, a mass shooting event at Brown University on the east coast of America. We can confirm, as it stands at the moment, there is a lot of chaos and confusion. 8 in a critical condition in hospital, 2 confirmed dead, and the shooter, unfortunately, is still on the loose. A live manhunt. We'll have all the latest in just a second on The Late Show Live. Good evening, hope you're well. Tonight on The Late Show Live, a special edition. Police are responding to reports of an active shooter at Brown University in Rhode Island on the east coast of America as school students take shelter and the gunman is still on the loose. GB News understands multiple people have been shot. and there are confirmed 2 dead as it stands. We'll bring you the latest updates as we get them. I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Hello, good morning. Thanks for your company. Unfortunately, we start this hour with that breaking news out of Brown University in Rhode Island. Here's what we know so far. At 4:22 p.m. local time here in America, Brown University in Rhode Island, if you're not familiar with it, it's pretty much sandwiched in between New York and Boston on the east coast of America. The university sent out an urgent alert warning of an active shooter on campus and urging people to lock doors, silence phones and stay hidden until further notice. The alert also told people to run, evacuate safely if they could, hide, or as a very last resort, they should fight. 8 people are critically injured in hospital as it stands, and Providence Police Department have also confirmed that multiple people have died. 2 as it stands, 2 fatally dead. A previous update was issued by the university stating that 1 person was in custody and the shooter had been apprehended and the situation was over. But amid the chaos and confusion, that had since been reversed, and we can confirm there is still an active shooter on site. And President Trump also posting on his Truth Social site that the situation was over and the gunman had been apprehended. He then reverse verified 5 minutes later, saying that Brown University had put the wrong information out, and he updated his post saying that the shooter was still on the loose. An FBI spokesperson has also said that the agency has deployed resources to the scene, and agents from the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms and Explosives are also responding. GB News also understands President Trump has been briefed on the situation. The FBI is keeping him up to date. Police in a press conference just moments ago say they still don't know what type of weapon was used in the attack, but they just can confirm it, of course, was a firearm. This is the update given just moments ago.
I can confirm that there are 2 individuals who have died this afternoon, and there are another 8 in critical status, though stable, at Rhode Island Hospital. Those are the only injuries or casualties that we know at this time. But as I mentioned, and it's important to remind folks, these numbers may change. We are still in early hours, but at this time there are 2 deceased and 8 who are critical but stable at Rhode Island Hospital. Additionally, we do not have a shooter in custody at this time. There is a shelter in place in effect for the greater Brown University area. If you live on or near Brown's campus, we are encouraging you to stay home and stay inside. If you're not home at this time, we would encourage you not to return to your homes until the shelter in place has been lifted.
OK, let's have a word now with former CIA operative Michael Waller, who joins me down the line. Michael, good evening. Thanks for your company. Sorry it's under these circumstances. What do we know so far about this situation at Brown? The shooter is still on the loose. Just give us your take, please.
Yeah, we don't have any more facts than that right now. If he's still on the loose, then he could be anywhere. It's a very dense metropolitan area between Boston, New York, and even Washington, D.C. It is the night before Hanukkah starts. We have no idea what the motive is, but we do know that there's a lot of people on the ground and a lot of people in danger as long as he's at large.
Authorities at the press conference given just a few moments ago said that to gain access to the building where most of the shooting took place, it was an engineering building, the shooter, who they describe as a male dressed in all black, would have needed a security card, a kind of student ID card to get into the building. But he did say there were exams going on at the time of the shooting, so traffic, as he describes it, was busy. Lots of footfall, people coming in and out of the building. Just tell us, please, from a security perspective, Michael, what will be happening now with the authorities? Of course, the local police department are there, the FBI are there. Who takes the lead on this kind of thing? And is it a case of the longer the shooter goes unaccounted for, the higher the chance that he gets away with it?
Right. It's a very easy area to leave from. There's an interstate highway system. He could be gone within minutes and then not tracked again if he was good at hiding. Right now, though, you've got the campus police. Every college campus has their own police force. Then you have the city police of Providence, the state police, and then the federal authorities led by the FBI. and other agencies. So usually on these investigations, the FBI will want to take the lead, even though it doesn't appear yet to have been a federal crime. But it's really anyone's guess right now who is taking charge. I can't help but suspect that if the gunman was seen, we would have some idea of what he would look like. But the fact that they're not even saying what he might look like is suspicious.
Yeah, I think the local police chief who just gave a press conference said, I mean, the only description he gave was that he was dressed in all black and he was seen by eyewitnesses, not police, but by eyewitnesses leaving the university campus on foot. But that was about 5 p.m. Eastern time here in America. So what's that? 2 hours ago. Just tell us, please, Michael, do you know much about Brown University itself? Where does it rank in terms of prestige? What kind of students go there?
It's a member of the Ivy League, so it's right in the same league as Harvard and Yale and Princeton and Columbia University. So it's in a very prestigious group of the most prestigious East Coast universities. It's a very old university. It was founded in the late 1700s by businessmen in the area, and so it's it's one of the most prestigious in the country.
President Trump has just spoken to reporters in the past couple of moments. Of course, we had that confusion from President Trump and Brown University themselves initially around about an hour ago, saying the shooter had been apprehended. Then they said he wasn't and he was on the run. President Trump, a moment ago, speaking to reporters live on camera, saying, "What a terrible thing it is. All we can do right now is pray for the victims and for those who were very badly hurt. It's a shame," said President Trump. It's a shame. Michael, what kind of risk would it have posed to students taking cover and shelter to see that alert from Brown University and the post from President Trump, who was just, I guess, just going off Brown University's update, initially saying the shooter had been apprehended? What kind of risk would that pose to the students?
Well, there are a whole lot of risks. There's a risk of doing something and there's a risk of not doing something. So it's really anybody's guess. I would tend to listen to what the authorities advise. But on the other hand, I don't usually listen to the authorities' advice myself. I usually try to scope out the situation and to see what would be the most useful, depending, because nobody can know what the right thing is to do at the right time. Notably, though, in Rhode Island, you have a very strict. You've got very strict laws in Rhode Island against. Pardon me?
Yeah, sorry, carry on. Sorry, there's a bit of a delay, our end. Apologies, carry on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Rhode Island has very, very, very strict laws against private citizens carrying firearms. So it's not the kind of state where people can protect themselves, defend themselves, or apprehend the suspect on their own. So it'd be much a bigger challenge to do than in other states where they don't have such strict laws.
We're just seeing some live pictures now. If there's any viewers watching on television, the image on your right-hand side is a live helicopter shot of I believe it's the engineering building, but it is, at the very least, it's Brown University, it's the campus. And on the left-hand side, that's a shot of the main streets from a little bit earlier today, this evening, about maybe 30, 20 minutes ago, of the surrounding streets. Lots of ambulances, police cars, of course, as well. Michael, do you know what the sort of gun laws are in Rhode Island? I suspect very strict compared to, say, the likes of Arizona or somewhere like that.
Right. They're very strict in most of the urban New England area, like New York City also, which is not part of New England, but they're very strict gun controls there. And universities in general usually don't allow students to carry arms on campus. But even local members of the community in a place like Providence, Rhode Island, would not be allowed to be armed generally on their own.
Lots of eyewitness reports coming in, Michael. There's the mother of a Brown University student shared a text to reporters that she received from her son during the shooting. The text message read, "Mum, there's a live shooting on campus. I'm going to run. I love you." Apparently, he's still barricaded in a closet, in a cupboard with multiple other students. And I guess the advice for any students now, with the gunman still on the run, is stay where you are, Michael, because this is a 150-acre site, the university. It's one of the largest institutions, areas or buildings, campuses in Providence. There's 230 buildings on site. There's bio labs, there's campus buildings, there's accommodation blocks. So although the gunman was apparently seen leaving the campus at 5 p.m, there is still a chance he could be on site.
Right, and it's smart in this case to take the authorities' advice if it's a confined area like that. But again, I'm not going to second guess what they're doing in a life or death situation. But again, it is up to each student to figure out the right thing, the most sensible thing to do.
OK, just hang on the line, Michael, if you will. I'm going to bring in my panel here in DC, the political commentator Hilary Fordwich and the border security and immigration expert Simon Hankinson. Good evening to you both. Thanks for your company. Simon, I guess I'll come to you first, a border security and immigration expert. What's your take on what's happening tonight in Brown University?
Well, I mean, your hearts go out to the parents and the students at this time right before the holidays. I didn't realize it was the night before Hanukkah. They're probably in the middle of exams. I always am very careful not to speculate on who it is. I noticed they've said what he was wearing and that it was a man, but not what ethnicity he was, what age he was. So we'll have to really hold off on that, and there'll be all kinds of speculation over the internet in the next few minutes, I'm sure.
Yeah, Hilary, how quickly should the authorities try and get a description out or any more information? Because compared to, say, the UK, I mean, the UK take their time with these kind of things. It can be days or weeks before we get any sort of image or CCTV. But America, they seem to be quite quick off the blocks, don't they?
Yes, they are. They're far quicker off the blocks as soon as they know. But of course, they have to be very careful not to be too fast and get anything incorrect. They are in the middle of exams tonight. I know that this actually occurred in the building of the design and engineering exam. And the campus, don't forget, the campus has like about 7,000 or so, 7,600 or so undergraduate students, about 3,000 graduate students. So there's about 10,000 students. There's a lot there on campus, all focused on their exams. So a totally ghastly situation. And I'm like Simon, and you, of course, our thoughts go out to the families, because if you have a student there, and we mentioned earlier, I mean, this is one of, the elite universities in the United States. You've got families and parents with their children there, students studying and ready to come home for the holiday season and Hanukkah and the Christmas season. I think, though, in terms of the identity, the moment they are certain, they will get that out. That happens in the United States versus England. It's very different.
Yeah, authorities, if anyone's just tuning in, if you're coming in from your Christmas party tonight on The Late Show Live, there's a mass shooting event taking place, or having taken place, in Brown University in Rhode Island on the east coast of America. We can confirm, as it stands at the moment, 2 people have sadly been killed. 8 are in a critical condition in hospital, more injured as well. The gunman, critically, is still on the loose. They don't know where he is. He was last seen leaving the university campus at around 5 p.m. shortly after the shooting, at around between 4:30 and 4:45 p.m. Eastern time. That's American time. We're 5 hours behind the United Kingdom in terms of the time zone. So the gunman is still on foot as it stands. The authorities encouraging people to stay inside their buildings, their classrooms, their halls, their accommodation until there's more updates. The only description we have is that the gunman was a male and he was dressed all in black, and he would have needed, according to the authorities, a security pass, a student ID pass, to get inside the building where this took place. Hilary Fordwich just mentioning there, it was an engineering and design building. There were exams taking place at the time, and the authorities have said foot traffic would have been very high, i.e. many people on site going in and out taking their exams. So there is a possibility he wasn't a student, maybe he just slipped in, but we don't know, we can't confirm. Michael, are you still there with us now? Just tell us, if you can, from a police authority perspective, what will be their priority now? How will they try and trace this guy? What will be the mode of action?
They traced them through the security cameras and through the card that was used to enter the building. He might have stolen the card, he might have passed through with someone else, or he might have been associated with the university in some way. We just don't know, but those would be the first 2 steps, followed by the eyewitnesses and then by any ballistics material that was left at the scene.
OK, Michael, thanks for your company this evening. Appreciate it. Maybe we'll try and come back to you a bit later on during the show, but for now, thank you very much. I think Louise Mensch, former Conservative MP, can join us now down the line. Louise, of course, a former MP in the UK, but now living in New York. Louise, are you there?
I am.
Hello. Your take, please, on what we're seeing this evening at Brown University.
Well, what struck me about the very limited description that we got of this guy was that he was wearing all black. And as your guesser pointed out, they didn't say what race he was, just that he was a man wearing all black. I must say what I took away from that is that he's likely, I guess we'll find out soon enough, to have been masked or trying to conceal his identity. And if so, that is perhaps more frightening than if it was a random mentally ill student who shot and then ran away. Normally these guys get caught by the police, normally they get taken down and they get shot. This guy apparently has got away and was wearing all black. Another reason that students should be sheltering in place until they're told to do otherwise is the authorities don't know right now if there's more than one shooter, or if this was some kind of conspiracy, if it's some kind of group doesn't like Jews, it's Hanukkah tomorrow, or it's a disgruntled student because it was the first day of exams for the people in that faculty. The exams literally were meant to start today. So you've got to think it's a disgruntled student, but they cannot be sure about that. And it looks like he actually wanted to get away, and so far has been successful. So until this guy's caught, people need to be very frightened and they need to stay where they are.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Charlie Kirk shooting in September. We heard the news that Charlie Kirk had been shot, he'd been killed, and then it took some hours. As far as I remember, what was it? At least 12 hours. Early into the next morning, we had information about his arrest finally, but there was a fairly long period where the guy was getting away. Just as a reminder on tonight's breaking news, if you're just tuning in to GB News and The Late Show Live, an active shooter has been reported on or near the campus of Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. Multiple people have been shot. 2 people have been killed as it stands, and 8 are in a critical condition in hospital. There is no suspect in custody, and an active shooter remains at large. He was last seen leaving the campus building by eyewitnesses at around 5 p.m. Eastern Time. That's about 2 and a bit hours ago. Within the past few minutes, President Trump has spoken to reporters where he said, "I've been fully briefed on the Brown University situation. What a terrible thing it is. And all we can do right now is pray for the victims and for those that were very badly hurt." Louise, just tell us if you can, for British viewers back home, geographically, where is Brown University?
But it's pretty much near Boston, between sort of like, I don't know, Boston and New York, but it's roughly speaking near New York. Okay, but it's not directly in New York. For British people, you just see it on the east coast of America. Same climate as New York, same political thing as New York, very liberal state, small Ivy League university. It's not the kind of place that you expect to find a would-be massacre or a multiple shooter, but these days you can get them anywhere in America. Unfortunately, just a couple of days ago we had a university in Kentucky, and now he's up in Rhode Island.
Yeah, it's tragic as well. I mean, look, this is awful news at any time, but a few days before Christmas, a few weeks before Christmas, it really hits home.
Yeah.
And our thoughts go out to those,
I did hear, Ben, I heard the police chatter on the radio while they're doing this. They're taking this incredibly seriously. There's multiple task forces there, and they're using explosives to blow up doors in that building that had stayed shut. You could hear the police saying that they are clearing the building. So I have to say, they don't regard this as being over in any way whatsoever. They're taking it very seriously indeed.
Okay, Hilary Fordwich?
Yeah, I was just saying the FBI is involved as well. She's actually right. They're taking this extremely seriously. You know, being 3 hours from New York and an hour from Boston, this is actually somewhere that's considered, by general accounts, is considered to be somewhere very safe. And I think that families that have sent their students there, I think this is a lesson that where on earth can you be safe in the United States? Because this is somewhere that was considered really, you know, like sort of it's not rural. It's a town, but it's you know, it's not in a major U.S. city, and I think that's just really shocking and for the people there in Rhode Island. But the FBI is on scene. They're assisting with the local task force, so they are taking this immensely seriously. Yes.
Yes, FBI Director Kash Patel posting on X around an hour ago. He said FBI personnel are on the scene and assisting this evening after the shooting at Brown University. We'll provide all capabilities necessary. Please pray for all those involved. We'll update with more information as we're able to. And Simon, this is going to, of course, it already is, I can see it on social media, reigniting the gun debate here in America. Is it too soon for that?
We're going to hear the same things from the same people that we always hear. So, yeah, it probably is too soon now, but I expect probably by tomorrow there'll be people calling for more gun control on the left, and you know, there'll be the usual arguments made from both sides.
And then what happens is, though, the people that illegally want guns are always going to get them.
Of course. Yeah, and you know, there are other ways to kill people. I mean, you were saying
exactly.
It's an unsafe
Knifings
place.
in London.
You could be at a concert in Manchester, you know, watching Ariana Grande, or you could be going to a little girl's party. Yeah, so these things are incredibly unpredictable.
Yep.
Yeah. Louise, as the fellow Brit here, actually we're all Brits, aren't we? You're a Brit, Simon?
Born.
Yes.
Oh, born Brit. Okay, there's 4 Brits here. Great stuff. What's your take on of course, I mean, I think it's far too soon. I don't like the way people try and score political points out of mass shootings so quickly by reigniting a gun debate. But what's your take as a Brit living in America about the guns?
One thing I've learnt about it is, as your other guest just said, nothing is going to change. I wish people on both sides of the debate would understand that. The Supreme Court has made it quite clear they're going to uphold the Second Amendment. So it doesn't really matter whether you agree with it or you disagree with it. It's here to stay, and it's not going to go away in our lifetimes. What I think America should do is invest quite a bit more in mental health treatment that comes perhaps with some compulsion. Back in the day when there was sort of bedlam and these various hospitals, they were closed down in the reforms because they were treating mentally ill patients very, very badly, torturing them. But they haven't been replaced by any modern alternatives. And so since we're always going to have a gun culture in the United States, and that will never change, I do think we need to put a bit of money into locking away, treating or otherwise securing desperately mentally ill people who shouldn't have access to these kinds of guns.
Tell me, Louise, do you feel safe when you sort of roam around New York? And are you in New York City or New York State? I mean, do you feel safe going out on the streets?
I'm in New York State right now. I'm in New York City very often, and I must say I do feel perfectly safe. I have lived in New York since 2012, New York City, and have never had a problem at all, ever, even one time. I do think quite a lot of it is sensationalized, just like President Trump, God bless him, said that, you know, London was some kind of cesspit of turmoil, of ever-increasing violence. Well, people who live there know that that's not true. However, could it be better? Yes, it could. And violence is, unfortunately, part of urban life in the modern world. It shouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah, and as Hillary said, I think if you're that way inclined, if you've got a mental illness, or worse, if you are just a murderous person with evil intentions, if you want to kill people, I'd argue you'll find a way to do it, guns or no guns. I guess guns make it easier, and there is a debate, I think, or a conversation to be had about maybe background checks, should they be stricter here in the US? As a Brit, I am never going to entertain any kind of conversation about taking Americans' guns away. None of my business. It's different in the UK because, I mean, I own shotguns in the UK. I have shotguns. You have a shotgun license, which you have to get via the police. A firearms officer comes to your house. They interview you. They make sure your house is in good order. They make sure you're, quite frankly, not a nutter. And they speak to your GP as well and get any background information if you've had depression, if you've ever been treated for anxiety, if you've been on medication. It's all quite thorough, and I understand in some states it's maybe here in America maybe not quite as thorough as it could be, Louise.
Never going to be that thorough. It's never going to be that thorough in America. No. But
is that a good thing though, or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing. You know, I mean, you have to understand that Americans are different than us. We, in our country, we don't have guns, and I think it's probably quite good. I don't want to start that, but it's an American right, and as you rightly said, we Brits got taught our lesson one time trying to take the Americans' guns away from them. I don't think we should be interfering in their sovereign right to have guns if they want to. The point is, given that that is the reality of life in the United States, what can you do to make it a bit safer? And I think locking these people away in secure hospitals is one way to stop them from finding a way to kill, as you just suggested they would.
Yeah. Stick with us, Louise, if you don't mind. Stay on the line. Hillary, my stance with the gun debate is, whilst guns are in America, you're never going to get them off the streets. There's a stat, something like 6 guns to every American. Yeah. So the country's flooded with weapons. It's different to the UK. I'm pro-gun here because, as Louise said, the guns are there, the horse is bolted, you're never getting them back, and the quickest way to stop a mass shooting is by being armed yourself.
That's absolutely
fine.
right.
But the UK, we don't have guns on the streets
right.
predominantly, so no, I'm not going to push a button and say, let's have guns on the streets in the UK.
Completely different cultures. I will say something that's changed here, and I'll take this from an expert source, somebody that I know that actually is an ex-police officer, and he teaches, because you have to, obviously you do have to have your credentials here too, and you have to pass concealed carry, you have to pass a test. And he says, and this is, I think, extremely sad, in all his years of teaching, do you know his classes have completely changed? He said, do you know who makes up now 80% of his classes? It is now elderly black ladies in their communities where they have lived their entire lives, and now they want their carry permits because they don't feel safe in their own communities. And I think that is a sad commentary on American society, and that's coming from a direct source who actually teaches carry laws.
If you're just tuning into the Late Show Live on GB News, if you've been out tonight at Christmas parties, unfortunately some sad news from East Coast America. There has been a mass shooting event at Brown University in Rhode Island. Just geographically, if you're not familiar, the university is sandwiched pretty much between New York City and Boston on the East Coast of America. 2 dead as it stands, unfortunately. 8 critically injured in hospital, more injured on top of that as well. And crucially, the gunman is still on the loose. He's not been seen for the past couple of hours. He was last seen leaving the university campus site on foot. The only description we have is that he was dressed in all black, and authorities encouraging students, locals in the area of Providence, Rhode Island, to stay inside, take shelter until there's more updates. It's a massive site, Simon. It's 150 acres, the university site, 230 odd buildings, accommodation blocks, labs, halls, and we understand students at the time of the shooting were taking exams. So as far as you know, maybe you don't know, but college students, they take exams before Christmas, do they, before going on their holidays?
Yeah, typically before each one of the big holidays at this time of year. But it seems like we've jumped to the conclusion that this shooter was mentally ill, which I think is a big leap. This university has about 15% foreign students. Given the timing of the attack, I don't think we want to rule out the possibility that it was targeted and that this person is trying to get away with it.
And you said it was Hanukkah tomorrow.
I didn't. I think Mr. Weller did.
Oh, right.
I looked it up, and it starts tomorrow, December 14th, and goes on for 12 days.
Well, again, we don't know. We'd be speculating, but I mean, if that is the case, it has echoes of Manchester, where the guy, I mean, his name was Jihadi, wasn't it? I mean, that's a joke in itself. A guy called Jihadi slains Jews before a big Jewish holiday. Are you armed, Simon, in the US? Do you have a permit?
Personally, no, not here in DC. It's a pretty tight state or tight city for having a personal weapon. You got to go through a lot of hoops.
Yeah, compared to say to the likes of Arizona, where I think when I was there on the border, I think the gun laws were open carry anywhere, and you don't need a kind of license to open carry. You just
New Hampshire's like that. That's where we have a house up in New Hampshire. The live free or die is our state motto, and the rules are much easier.
Louise, what's the happy medium? Open carry without a license, as opposed to being unarmed at all.
No, I think you should have to pass a good proficiency test in order to be able to carry a gun around. But I've never really understood why open carry is worse than closed carry when you've got something concealed. It doesn't seem to make much difference to me. If you're licensed to carry a firearm, you should be able to carry it either which way, I think. And it's funny, since I come to America and I've got dual citizenship now, I'm an American as well, I've thought about taking some firearms training myself. I just think in a country where so many people are armed, it really does help to know the basics. So, funnily enough, although I think most of my friends at home would be terrified at the idea of me with a weapon, it's something that a lot of people think about when they come to America and they take in the culture here.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Louise. Hillary, I think it's just a cultural thing, because I remember before I first came to America in 2016 was my first time, I went to a shooting range, and the guys at the range, where was I? It was maybe in Dallas or San Antonio, somewhere in Texas. And they said, have you shot before? I said, no, I'm a Brit. This is before I had shotguns in the UK. They said, okay, what would you like to shoot? Here's an MP5, here's an AK-47, what would you like to shoot? And I said, well, I'll start with a pistol if that's okay. So at first, as a Brit, it all seems quite scary. I think having that gun in your hand, you feel like you know, you have the power of God. And there were people shooting next to me in the range, and I was thinking, well, hang on a minute, if these guys are having a bad day or, you know, just want to go off the handle, then I'm right next to them. But eventually, as I've spent time here, I've shot more guns and I've got used to it. It doesn't seem so scary anymore.
Well, no, I think it does seem very scary. As somebody who grew up in England, you know, I never saw guns. Of course, there weren't any guns whatsoever. However, apart from shooting. But I would say this, I think something that is sort of like in the middle is, and especially as a woman, you know, having a pepper spray gun is really good because you're not going to kill anybody, but you certainly can protect yourself. And that's something that I think is really great to be able to have. And I think in the UK, with the way things are now, I think it's a pity that women aren't allowed to carry anything that really actually protects themselves, particularly when you see what's happened on some of the trains there. So I think it's actually rather good. A pepper spray gun is my middle of the road English girl in America tool.
Yeah, pepper spray, mace is it's illegal in the UK. You can't have it. It falls under the firearms legislation. Simon, quick word for you before I go to Trump.
No, I was just going to say, this is dating me, but I learned to shoot a Lee Enfield 303 rifle at boarding school in England in the early 80s, and we all did. So maybe now, but back then we were all learning to go fight World War I all over again.
Yeah, well, good man. You're a sharp shooter then. Get yourself a gun here.
I wasn't a bad shot, back a long time ago.
Let's take a look at what President Trump said to reporters just a few moments ago.
So I've been fully briefed on the Brown University situation, what a terrible thing it is. And all we can do right now is pray for the victims and for those that were very badly hurt, it looks like. And we'll inform you later as to what's happening, but it's a shame. It's a shame. Just pray. Thank you very much.
That was President Trump there speaking a few moments ago at the White House. He just arrived back, I believe, from the Army versus Navy NFL game. Well, it's not NFL, football game in Baltimore. Louise, there was some confusion and, I mean, it can only be described actually as chaos when this news first broke. President Trump posting on Truth Social that the shooter had been apprehended and then reverse ferreting 5 minutes later saying, oh, actually, no, he hasn't. I understand he was probably just copying Brown University's updates, who did the same thing. But, I mean, it makes you think, why is Trump relying on Brown University's social media page and not maybe law enforcement, the FBI, who he can probably, you know, get the best access to?
Well, that said, Kash Patel did in fact announce that the assassin of Charlie Kirk had been caught and was in custody from the FBI account, and that was completely wrong. He had to reverse ferret on that very quickly, didn't he? So perhaps President Trump thought one was as reliable as the other. But I understand his desire to, you know, to celebrate that a guy's in custody if he thought he was in custody, and to be totally fair to him, it was Brown University's mistake. I think since we've now seen this in two terrifying active shooter incidents around young people, as Charlie Kirk's event was, is that we should really urge the authorities not to put out news unless they know what they're talking about, because it does undermine trust, especially in a situation where you need to be able to rely on the authorities because the guy is still at large. So they should have been a bit more careful, but I don't really fault President Trump for relying on the university. I can't fault him for that.
No, and I think I'm just reading as well that the authorities potentially did arrest somebody initially thinking they were the shooter before releasing him after realising he wasn't, and maybe that's where Brown University got their wires crossed, and indeed President Trump as well. But I mean, Hillary, you have to say, if you're a student sheltering, I don't know, in a closet, in a cupboard, under a table, and you see Brown University posting an update saying they've been caught, then you leave because you think it's safe. I mean, goodness knows what could have happened.
And this is the problem with mass communication quickly. As you say, everybody will quickly believe it, including the president. So I think it's extremely important for the accurate news to be coming out. I don't know that they have, right now, even apprehended the shooter as we speak. That's why there's a precaution. That's why they're still under lockdown. So we don't know anything further. And if you're one of those students, you need to be in lockdown. You need to be under a desk. You need to be locked in your room. And I think it's terrifying for the students, for the families, and for everyone involved.
No, the police saying the shooter is still on the loose. He's dressed all in black. He was last seen on the campus site at around 5 p.m, which is around 2.5 hours ago. and he's on the loose. There was a live manhunt for the shooter. So, Simon, does this kind of bring into question, as we were mentioning earlier, discussing earlier with Hillary, about how sort of keen the authorities are here to release descriptions, detailed information, images, CCTV, compared to the UK, where the authorities are criticised quite regularly for being slow to release descriptions? Is that the risk when they are so keen to do that, you get things wrong?
Yeah, it's a risk.
And by the way, sorry, prejudice potential trials as well.
I think in Britain, honestly, the motives are political. They are desperate not to have the wrong, race commit a crime because they're worried about what's going to happen. And in the U.S., there's this tension between wanting to get all the information out immediately and also scoop everybody else. These news agencies are competing with each other to try to get the news out. So it's bad when you have no news, and it's bad when you have too much news that's inaccurate or says something like the situation is ongoing. It doesn't really get us anywhere, does it?
Yeah, I think the answer really is you can never really win as these events keep going and keep going. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. Louise, last word to you before I let you go. Anything more to add?
I just think that we shouldn't say that the authorities are just doing nothing. They are clearing this university. They are getting the students out safely. So hopefully they catch this guy. But trying to change America is a recipe for disaster. It will never work, no matter how many mass shootings there are.
Yeah, and I think the last British media personality to try and ban guns in America was Piers Morgan, and he got absolutely, he got cancelled from CNN and sent packing with his tail between his legs back to London.
He was lambasted.
I love Piers. I love Piers.
So,
I'm going to be always loyal. I love Piers.
Yeah, I guess he had good intentions, but I'll learn from my elders and definitely not get involved in that one.
Skip that one.
Yeah, Louise, thanks very much. If I don't speak to you, happy Christmas. Thanks for all your contributions this year.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, have a good one. Cheers. There's been a tweet from JD Vance, the Vice President, who has said on X, I keep saying a tweet, it's a post now, isn't it, on X? Terrible news out of Rhode Island this evening. We're all monitoring the situation and the FBI stands ready to do anything to help. We're all thinking of and praying for the victims tonight. And if you are just tuning in, back in Blighty, to the Late Show Live on GB News, breaking news from Brown University in Rhode Island on the east coast of America. There has been a mass shooting event at the university. We can confirm 2 people have sadly been killed. 8 others are in a critical condition in hospital. There's no suspects in custody and the active shooter remains at large. We can bring in now former Immigration Minister in the UK, Kevin Foster. Kevin, are you there? Good evening. Thanks for your company tonight. Just first of all, your reaction, please, to this news breaking from America.
Well, it's extremely sad to hear. We've not obviously heard many details yet about those who've lost their lives, but at a university, your immediate thoughts goes to this could be young people who had their whole life in front of them. Christmas coming up, looking forward to spending that perhaps with families, and now had their lives taken from them. It is a tragic situation, and sadly not one we haven't seen in the United States before, although much more rarely here in this country. My hometown is Plymouth, and I was in the Home Office at the time of the Keyham shootings back in 2021, so can have a lot of sympathy with the situation the authorities on the ground are trying to deal with.
Kevin, goodness me! So you were nearby that Plymouth shooting. It was 2021, wasn't it? The mass shooting. It was as far as I remember, wasn't he an incel? The guy, was it Jake Davison?
He was. I wasn't in Plymouth that day, but I was in the Home Office at the time when it happened. But yeah, a radicalised individual who who actually legally held firearms in this country. It's worth remembering that actually those guns were legally held that he had, and there were some changes to our rules afterwards in response. But you'll have this sort of what the military would sometimes call the sort of fog of war, where there's an event going on. There's obviously very serious, people have been injured, potentially killed. Police on the ground are trying to identify who it is. If it's one person, if it's more, are there other people involved? And trying to get that information, whilst naturally people are very concerned and want to hear what's going on. Lots of media asking questions as well. Plus, of course, people who will have families and relatives in the area who'll be desperate for news about their loved ones. So it can be very difficult, and it's why I can understand a little bit of what we're hearing about people being a little bit uncertain about exactly whether the the shooter's been arrested or neutralised, i.e. in this sort of instance shot dead by law enforcement, or whether they're still roaming. So it can be very difficult, exact details. But of course, rightly, police force on the ground are going to be focused on trying to bring this to an end, trying to identify where the shooter is, make sure he's no longer a risk to anyone else, and then try and identify him, look to what might have, try and get, for example, to where they lived, see if there's other evidence, see if other people might have known. And of course, sometimes, your mind does get drawn in these circumstances, thinking, is this coordinated with someone else? Might we see another attack? Even though many of them turn out to be sort of lone wolf style actors, you can't rule that out at an early stage.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning, we would be speculating, but I think it is worth mentioning that it is Hanukkah tomorrow, the Jewish festival. Who knows if it was related. Of course, Manchester was the stabbing in Manchester by the guy called Jihad. So it's just worth, we don't know for sure, we're totally speculating, but
no,
the guy is still on the loose.
It's something the authorities will quickly want to try and identify as what has motivated this. But obviously your first thing is to try and bring the immediate incident to an end, but then quickly try and find out what motivated. As you touched on in Kiev, it turned out to be a man radicalised by incel, involuntary celibate, if people are wondering what that abbreviation means, have very misogynistic attitudes towards women. In this instance, the authorities will be quickly trying to find out what's established, and also was anyone else involved? Was anyone else aware? Because you can't immediately rule out that there isn't someone else involved, or at least aware of it, and a potential for a copycat or a further attack.
Yeah, and Kevin, the shooting in Plymouth that you refer to when you were at the Home Office in 2021, as you rightly said, that guy, the incel, Jake Davison, he legally held shotguns. So, as I said a few moments ago, I hold shotguns. You have to have a firearms interview to make sure, quite frankly, you're of sane mind. They ask you what your reasons for having a shotgun are. Mine were clay pigeon shooting, very normal thing to do. But this guy in Plymouth from years ago, he held shotguns. So it just goes to show really that even if you do have thorough background checks like we have in the UK, they are, as you said, even stronger now after Plymouth in 2021. Even if you have those background checks and you keep your gun safely in a locked cabinet and nobody knows where the keys are, it doesn't matter. That doesn't solve the problem, does it? Potential
There's
problems.
always a risk. Clearly our laws around firearms are very different in the UK, reflecting the fact that you've been touching on already this evening. There's a very different culture around gun ownership in the UK to what there is in the United States of America. But you have to keep reviewing, keep re-looking at what your laws are, trying to, but you can never be 100% on this. We all remember 30 years ago, the Dunblane massacre, which prompted the ban of handguns, even though they were quite limited in terms of the legal ability to own them already at that time in the UK. A ban was brought in that's now been in place for 3 decades. There's no legislation like that in the United States. A very different picture, particularly given Second Amendment rights. And whilst there'll of course be some debate, I suspect, about gun laws and background checks following this incident, we're not going to see the type of UK-style regulation of firearms brought into the United States.
Kevin, hang on the line if you can. Simon Hankinson's with me. Simon, do you think in the UK, Hillary was talking about mace, pepper spray, which is currently illegal. It falls under firearms. I think I searched the other day, actually, you get something like a 5-year sentence or up to 5 years for possessing it. Do you think that's right when it comes to mace, pepper spray?
It seems crazy to me not to give people something to defend themselves with. I mean, when these things happen in Europe, people are defenseless. I remember the case in London on London Bridge, where somebody's running around trying to stab people, and there are guys in pubs taking shields.
There, 2017. I was on the ground. I was with a young lady who had her throat cut. I was next to her body as she bled out. Young Aussie girl, Zara Zeleniak. I'll never forget her. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
No, I mean, that's awful. just can't imagine what that's like. But there were men running around trying to defend these, children and women, and
chairs,
they had nothing to do with it.
And you were saying they were taking shields from pubs?
There was one case, they were in a pub, and I think they took an axe, sort of like in
a display,
symbolic,
they're
just a display, but they used it to try to fight off one of these guys. So in America, you know that there's going to be people around who are trained and know how to use a weapon, and in certain circumstances, we've had a lot of cases where individuals have been able to defend themselves in their homes or in a restaurant. In a mall a couple years back, there was a young man, who's like 18-year-old kid, saw someone pulling out a gun and going around trying to kill people. He pulled out his own licensed weapon and shot him, and saved a lot of lives.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And you can kill people with a car. In Marseille, I was consul general there, and just the year before, a guy ran down, I think, 120 people and killed.
Was it Bastille Day celebrations?
I'm not sure it was on Bastille Day, but it was in 2016, 15, 16. The point is, he was able to kill a huge number of people without any weapon other than a van.
But the thing is, if you want to kill people, you can.
You will find a way.
Yeah. And I think I personally would not want to be somewhere where I couldn't defend myself. So I think having a pepper gun, like I said, is my solution.
Pepper spray, yeah. Do you own any firearms here, Hilary?
I don't own any firearms, no, but I do want one of those pepper guns, which I've decided, especially covering this tonight, I will have, but for certain times when I'm on my own.
No, I remember many years ago, some neighbors of my grandmother's in Sussex were robbed. They were upstairs. They could see this crew of robbers come in. They had shotguns in the house, but they knew that if they were to use those to defend themselves, end of story. So it was easier to let them loot the house. Whereas in America, certainly in stand your ground states like Florida, Texas, you would not be able to do that.
Only the stand your ground states, though.
Well,
right?
I think all states, but the stand your ground states are the ones where you can defend your home and your family and your life and property.
Yes.
Kevin, did that not change? I think it was Tony Martin, obviously the infamous incident where he shot burglars who were they running away? Did he shoot them in the back? But correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm just trying to recall
Tony Martin
details.
Case. He shot a burglar dead in his own home and then fired on a burglar running away. If I recall correctly, the burglar he shot dead in his home was aged 16. He was convicted of that one, but if I recall correctly, not for the one who was running away. But the law was changed afterwards to actually a more sensible position that I think it went from being reasonable what you've done in self-defense to having to be like grossly disproportionate in terms of the force you'd use to defend your home and yourself after that particular case. So effectively what Tony might have done, on his own at night, two people in his home approaching him, and he'd resorted to the firearm that he held. Most people would say now, our law would now say that actually that is self-defense and perfectly reasonable, and most of us with that description I've just given would think, well, hang on, if I'm at home on my own at night with two people approaching me in my home, opening fire is going to be the way I defend myself. So in terms of the law, the self-defense has been clarified here in the UK, and I think we haven't seen a really case like that since, although it is worth noting that some people will try and use self-defense in arguments about, for example, a domestic violence situation where they actually are the aggressor. Let's be clear on that front. There's someone attacking someone else. So there's always that balance of ensuring that we don't take the law to a place where someone can abuse it, who is actually an abuser and is then trying to argue something ridiculous. That was self-defense.
Okay, if you're just tuning in to GB News, to the Late Show Live here in America, the breaking news is that 2 people have been killed in a mass shooting event in Rhode Island at Brown University. It's a top university, quite prestigious, an Ivy League university. The shooter, crucially, is still at large. We understand they opened fire at the university on students who were potentially sitting their exams. He left the scene maybe 30 minutes later, about 5 p.m. Eastern time, and he still has not been found. So there was a live, active manhunt underway for the shooter. Police say he was dressed in all black. Potentially he was masked as well, and eyewitnesses say he left on foot. The authorities are encouraging not only students but locals in Providence, Rhode Island, the surrounding area, to stay indoors and seek shelter until there's more updates. And the gunman as I said, has not been seen before 5 p.m. After he was seen leaving the college building. Hillary?
Yeah, and then also they've asked the local community to please check all of their video on their, like they have their Ring apps,
the doorbells.
the doorbells, and if they have any video footage where they could see anything suspicious, and maybe there will be some footage. Don't forget, if somebody's on the loose, probably they're going to try and take shelter. They're probably going to maybe try to hide somewhere, and they may find something from the public. That's putting out that sort of alert. Hopefully that will bring in some sort of information too.
Yes, there was some confusion when this story first broke. Brown University released information on their social media pages saying that the shooter had been apprehended and the incident was over. They quickly reversed on that, maybe 5-10 minutes later, saying, no apologies, the shooter is still at large. By that point, however, President Trump had already posted on his own Truth Social platform saying he's praying for the victims and the shooter has been apprehended. He's in custody. Again, President Trump, of course, forced to clarify that Brown University got it wrong. The shooter is still at large. So some chaos and confusion initially in this incident. But as it stands, the death count is 2. 2 people died. 8 in a critical condition in hospital. And Kevin, I just want to ask you, please, talking about UK gun laws and firearms laws, was it ever under discussion when you were at the Home Office regarding mace, pepper spray? Has it ever been looked at by governments of any colour in recent years?
Yeah, some of the laws around what people can carry have been looked at over recent years. When I was in Parliament, we actually had to change the law around carrying certain corrosive substances, sort of things that you might find in toilet cleaner, because people were carrying them and actually using them as part of crimes or robberies, acid throwing at people. We had some quite horrific incidents. And it was, unless it's actually banned, it becomes quite a difficult process to actually deal with someone who's you could suspect is going to do something, but it's very hard. You can't really prove what's in their mind versus if they're, let's say, claiming that actually they're on the way home to clean the toilet. So that's one of the reasons why there hasn't been a change in the laws. I think where the debate could come is, for example, some people may have seen footage not that long ago of a police community support officer in London trying to deal with someone who was clearly quite large and aggressive, and she literally had nothing other than a pair of handcuffs and her radio. You could certainly see in that scenario saying that actually we should be more prepared to issue things like tasers or pepper sprays to those people out there representing law enforcement. But I've always been very reticent to see this expanded more widely, because actually people might think they can have it for protection, but where's it going to be in your bag? It also means that someone who's carrying it with malicious intent will usually get the first strike, so to speak. And if they're stopped by a police officer, unless they can actually prove they're about to do something with it, they've got to let them go. And that means people wandering around with these types of things. So it does cut both ways. And that's why we didn't legalise it. And as I say, we had the experience of having to ban carrying certain substances because people were using it as part of crimes and to attack other people.
Yeah, well said, actually. Zaphod on gbnews.com/you'll say has said something similar. They've said that's why police are not routinely armed with handguns in the UK, because these too can be taken by criminals and then used on the officer. David, good evening, David. You've said, can I remind everyone that if you legalise any weapons in the UK, they also become available to criminals as well. And Glynis, good evening, Glynis. You've said, Ben, didn't one man use a narwhal tusk to defend people on the Westminster Bridge attack? Or was it another incident? Simon mentioned something similar to that. So I can tell you it was the 2019 London Bridge attack. That's when the guy got the tusk, the giant sort of elephant-style tusk, the narwhal tusk, to fend off the terrorist. The incident I was at in 2017 was at Borough Market, just down the road on London Bridge. That's when 3 terrorists ran riot down Borough Market in the pubs, where people were forced, Simon, to defend themselves with, as you said, tables, chairs, throwing plates at them, all while these nutters were running around with not only big knives and machetes, but what I think 2 of them, or at least all of them, had fake suicide bombs vests on as well. We've got a quick update actually from Brown University, just released this second. It's from the president, Christina H. Paxson, who has said, "This is a deeply tragic day for Brown, our families and our local community. There are no words that can express the deep sorrow we're feeling for the victims of the shooting that took place today. We've lost 2 community members today who were fatal victims of the shooting, And at this point, we know there are at least 8 additional victims who were transported to the hospital. In this moment, they are in a critical but stable condition, but this is an evolving situation. Our hearts are with their families. And if you're just tuning into GB News, the breaking news from East Coast America is that 2 people have been killed, 8 are in a critical condition in hospital after a mass shooting at Brown University in Rhode Island. Simon, Kevin mentioned about handguns being outlawed after Dunblane in the 80s. Did you ever have a handgun? How, just describe for someone younger like me, I'm mid-30s, what was it like? Were handguns available freely? Did you need a license like you do now, shotguns? How did it work?
Depends on the state. I remember when I was about 13, I went home with my friend Jerry in rural Pennsylvania, and his uncle Mikey had just gotten out of jail, and he said, "You guys want to shoot?" So we went in the backyard, and he had a .357 Magnum, which is a very large handgun, and he put up a bunch of cans, and we shot at him. So yeah, they were pretty widely available, not that hard to get a hold of. And a lot of people, particularly in rural areas, know how to shoot.
And in the UK, do you have any memories of the UK when handguns were around? Hillary, do you?
No, not when I was living there, no. I will tell you that I went shooting actually in Arizona, was staying at a resort outside of Phoenix, and we had to be driven 2 hours out into the desert because the cowboys would go nowhere near the cities. They were actual cowboys. Went shooting, and we had the what is it called? The go up in the air. I forget what they call it. Skeet shooting. And obviously it's logical to me. You just follow the skeet, and I hit 3 in a row. And he said to my then husband, "Never give that lady a gun," because I got all 3 targets. But I will say that I think that your average American here, as a child, just to Simon's point, has been taught to shoot and can shoot. And I think it's in this country, it's self-defense, and that's why I have a pepper gun.
Pepper spray.
Pepper spray.
Have you ever used it? You've discharged
Not used it, but I have it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, don't bring it into the studio.
No.
In case I miff you off.
No. But when I'm somewhere on my own and.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. I mean,
yes.
many people in the UK, many women, of course, they want pepper spray, they want mace to be legalised. And I looked the other day, it's quite a serious offence to have pepper spray in the UK. It falls under the Firearms Act, up to 5 years in prison.
In some states, people my age remember going to high school, and there'd be trucks, and people would have a shotgun on a rack in the back of the truck.
Yes.
Or they'd have a shotgun above the fireplace. I learned to shoot a shotgun, to shoot skeet in high school. It was a perfectly normal thing. We had a gun club.
There's some detail coming out from Brown University. One student has been speaking to local media, I think it's MSNBC, who basically describing how he hid under a desk
for 2 hours
in the campus for hours.
2 hours, yeah.
For 2
couple hours, yeah.
I mean, absolutely terrifying. Can you imagine? I mean, maybe you don't want to, but knowing there's a mass shooting taking place, you don't know where the shooter is, you're hiding under a desk, you don't know whether it's safe to come out. The university initially says, yes, it's over, then they say it's not.
And the students are terrified, and don't forget, because they can't use their phones, they don't want to say anything, they're remaining quiet, they can't call their families. The families also, the worry of those parents and all those families for those students. So I think terrifying for the students, and also, don't forget, this is amongst a local community. We're seeing footage right now, you can see that this is also a residential community. So people that live close by, a lot of people obviously rent their houses out, there's student housing around here, for fraternity, sorority housing. Everybody in the entire region must be terrified.
I'm also seeing some footage now which we'll endeavour to get you of law enforcement, don't know who they are, I assume the sheriffs or the police, basically kicking down doors to one of the buildings inside the university campus. As a reminder, it's a 150-acre site. There's 230 odd buildings, there's labs, there's accommodation blocks, there's halls where exams were taking place. The footage I'm seeing now, which again we'll endeavour to get you, this is some live pictures now actually from the streets of Providence in Rhode Island.
The residential area.
The residential area, police searching for the shooter who is still at large. So the shooter is still at large, 2 dead, 8 critically injured. And I'm just going to read you a text before we, we're not going to a break, we're going to come back in just a second, but before I let you go for a quick breather, this is a text from a son who texted his mother. So it's the mother of a Brown University student who shared the text message she received from her son during the shooting, and the text said, "Mum, there's a live shooting on campus. I'm going to run. I love you." Apparently the son is still barricaded in a closet in a cupboard with multiple other students. Simon, imagine receiving that from your son, your daughter.
And I do know, by the way, one thing, I did hear the police officer has said that they did have 2 months ago, they had what they called a united like a practice run, and they actually just ironically were practicing with the campus security and the local police. So they were ready for something like this, which is a good thing to know, which is maybe why they're all on scene 2 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I spent 23 years as a Foreign Service officer. We practiced for a lot of things, but when it happens, believe me, all that most of it goes out the window.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay, well, that's a pity.
You hide under the desk. That guy was smart. He did the right thing.
Oh, he did wait
for the message.
Okay, we're going to have a quick reset. Kevin, I'll let you go for now. Thank you for your contributions. You've been great. Really appreciate your company tonight. And if I don't speak to you, Merry Christmas, and we'll catch up soon. Stick with us on the Late Show Live. We'll be back in just a few seconds. 2 dead, 8 injured as it stands at Brown University. Back in just a sec.
Really well been through.
Rhode Island's the tiniest, smallest.
Hello, good morning to you. Welcome along to the Late Show Live. This is a special edition, unfortunately, of the Late Show Live tonight because police are responding to reports of an active shooter at Brown University in Rhode Island, East Coast America, as the school urges students to take shelter. GB News understands multiple people have been shot, 2 have been killed. I'm Ben Leo, and this is the Late Show Live. Hello, good morning. We start this hour with that breaking news out of Brown University in Rhode Island. Here is what we know so far. At 4:22 p.m. local time here in America, Brown University in Rhode Island, sandwiched pretty much between New York City and Boston on the East Coast, they sent out an urgent alert warning of an active shooter on campus and urging people to lock doors, silence phones and stay hidden until further notice. The alert also told people to run, evacuate safely if they could, hide, or as a very last resort, they should fight. 1 person is in a critical condition. 8 people are in a critical condition in hospital. 1 has died. 2 have died, fatally injured, and many more injured beyond that. A previous update was issued by the university stating that 1 person was in custody. That was since reversed, and there is still, just to confirm, there is still an active shooter. They do not know where the shooter is. An FBI spokesperson has also said that the agency has deployed resources to the scene, and agents from the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives are also on the scene responding. GB News understands President Trump has been briefed on the situation, and police say they still don't know what type of weapon was used in the attack, although they did confirm it was some type of a firearm. A press conference was held just under an hour ago where this update was given.
I can confirm that there are 2 individuals who have died this afternoon, and there are another 8 in critical status, though stable, at Rhode Island Hospital. Those are the only injuries or casualties that we know at this time. But as I mentioned, and it's important to remind folks, these numbers may change. We are still in early hours, but at this time there are 2 deceased and 8 who are critical but stable at Rhode Island Hospital. Additionally, we do not have a shooter in custody at this time. There is a shelter in place in effect for the greater Brown University area. If you live on or near Brown's campus, we are encouraging you to stay home and stay inside. If you're not home at this time, we would encourage you not to return to your homes until the shelter in place has been lifted.
Within the past hour, President Trump has also been speaking to reporters at the White House about the incident.
So I've been fully briefed on the Brown University situation, what a terrible thing it is. And all we can do right now is pray for the victims and for those that were very badly hurt, it looks like. And we'll inform you later as to what's happening, but it's a shame. It's a shame. Just pray. Thank you very much.
With me now is security expert Henry Bolton. Henry, good morning. Thanks for joining us this evening. I guess after the likes of, I don't know, off the top of my head, Sandy Hook, Columbine, Austin, Virginia Tech, we could go on and on. It's kind of sadly not surprising when this kind of thing happens, but it doesn't make it any less tragic, particularly days before Christmas. Henry, you still there? I think he's frozen.
Sorry, yes.
Henry back.
Sorry, you're talking to me. Sorry, I can't actually see you from this end. There's a technical. Sorry. Can you ask again? Sorry.
Yeah, go for it. I was just saying it's kind of not surprising, mass shootings these days, when we hear of mass shootings, but that doesn't make it any less tragic, particularly just days before Christmas.
No, of course. And I think, I mean, you know, of course, the first thought has to be to the victims of this, and particularly the families who are going to be, the victims will be all caught up in it. They'll be, you know, they'll be undergoing treatment, if you like, the adrenaline is flowing, but of course there will be extreme anxiety on the part of the families and the friends and people, you know, people around there wondering what's going on. And at this time of year, that's the last thing that people need. But you know, Brown's is a largest university, about 11,000 students. It's never had a major security incident in the past, so this comes pretty much out of the blue. You know, like any university, they're politically active, but none of that, you know, we shouldn't link any of that to any sort of speculation as to what's caused this. I understand, though, that the initial confusion over whether the suspect was in custody or not was that the police, in searching the engineering faculty of the university, a 3-story U-shaped building, actually did they did find an individual who they thought may be the suspect, and that was reported initially, but subsequent information is that that wasn't the individual, and they're still looking for them, as you've already reported. So, I mean, you know, this is an ongoing situation. I think that's the first thing to sort of to flag up. And until we know who the suspect is, it's very difficult to identify a motive, why this has happened. It's a Saturday. Saturday isn't a particularly busy university day in any university campus. I mean, there's research, you know, going on and so on, but it's not the busiest day. So it's an unusual incident from that point of view as well.
Yeah, I think potentially Hilary Ford, which is here with me, they were taking exams, the students, Hilary.
No, it was, yeah. There was the second day of exams, and this was in the engineering, design building and physics building. And so it would have been basically jam-packed, actually, with students taking their exams. So I would suspect that this shooter knew that this building was busy, and he went in knowing that.
Simon Hankinson is here with me as well. Henry, I know you can't see, but you can hear. The police, during the press conference, Simon, was saying that most buildings on the campus, it's a 150-acre campus, 230 buildings, most buildings were secured with card swipe security. So basically you need an ID card or a security card to get into the building, much like a hotel room. But there were exams going on, so the police officer said footfall was very busy, lots of traffic. Potentially the guy, the shooter, we don't know who they are, but they're dressed all in black, they're on the loose. He could have just slipped in behind somebody else who went through the door.
He could have slipped in, or he could have been a student and gone in and not been probably wasn't carrying his weapon outside until he needed to use it or wanted to use it. So, yeah, they're going to be looking through. I imagine those machines have details of, you know, whoever swiped and where. They're going to be looking at all the security cameras that I'm sure they have everywhere, any cell phone cameras. But it's going to take an extraordinary amount of work, I'm sure.
Henry, is there anything you can? Yeah, go on, Henry.
I mean, yeah, I mean the first thing will be to secure the people in that area, make sure that they're safe. The second thing, even it's of course associated, but the second thing will be to try and find out how many people have been involved in this. Are they looking for one person? Are they looking for 2 people? Are they looking for 5 people? They just probably don't know at the moment. So that identification of that individual is going to be absolutely crucial. But if indeed there were a lot of students there, I mean, you may recall the Iranian embassy siege. And one of the problems that the SAS had, they far fewer people in that case, but is actually identifying the good guys from the bad. That's a very, very difficult task in any hostage rescue operation or any operation of this sort. Trying to identify, because sometimes you'll get cases where the offender, the shooter, the suspect, call him what you will actually, you know, to try and blend in with whatever else is going on as well, which can make it doubly difficult for the police to control a cordon when they're trying to move casualties as well. So that's an incredibly difficult task for law enforcement and any teams going in to try and to locate the individual and deal with them. Very, very difficult, very, very challenging environment, and particularly if indeed there were a lot of students there at the time.
Yeah, well said about the Iranian embassy siege, Operation Nimrod. There was, I think it was Netflix who did a great documentary on it a few years ago. The SAS, sterling job. And if there's any argument or debate about who are the best, the premier special forces team in the world, SEAL team, Navy SEALs, sorry lads, it's the SAS as far as I'm concerned. No hostages, Henry. Is that right? No hostages were killed in that raid?
There was a couple of were killed by the terrorists. But yeah. No. So that all went. It was a very smooth operation, and given the complexity of it in various respects. But we're not really talking about that operation. I mean, the point I want to make is that what they had to do very, very rapidly was to sift through, because the terrorists actually then tried to integrate themselves with the hostages. When the SAS came in. So it was very, but they had seconds to separate them out, of course. Now, so it's a very, very difficult task, and you can end up shooting the wrong people. So, my hat's off to the guys who've gone in to deal with this. You don't know what's around the next corner, whether it's casualties, as was the case in this, or whether it's somebody just about to shoot at you. You just don't know. So, and identifying, as I say, the good from the bad is tremendously difficult. So they've got all that to think about. They've got what happens next. Who is this individual? Is he a disgruntled student? Is he a terrorist? We just don't know. And there's no point in speculating. But my point is that the law enforcement people are going to be working flat out to try and identify this person and their motives, and whether they were working alone or not, and what exactly they're dealing with, because I suspect at the moment they still do not know.
Simon, where does this leave? There was such a big debate recently about the UK being an unsafe hellhole, President Trump talking about Europe, Western civilization on the decline, London's unsafe, and then of course we get the other side of the argument saying, no, this is some right-wing talking point, what are you talking about, London's great. But where is safer, America or Britain?
No, it's a fact. I mean, when I left Britain, there were no stabbings. Nobody talked about knife crime. It wasn't a thing. No. The number of rapes in Britain has gone up by, I think it was 5,000 in the year 2000, and now it's 65,000. So I would say that is demonstrably less safe than 20, 30 years ago.
And I actually think, and it's not for me to say because I'm not in law enforcement, I will preface this by saying I'm not an expert, but if those criminals knew that you could defend yourself, and I don't mean to make the entire evening here about defending oneself with pepper spray, but if you were able to defend yourself, don't you think that would be more of a deterrent to some of these knifings, some of these rapes, some of these assaults? I think it is a deterrent to criminals.
You know, a curious fact, if you take out of the United States statistics on murder about 15 cities and only certain neighborhoods in those cities, our murder rate goes down to that of Western Europe. So it is very localized. There are parts of the United States.
That's a good point.
You're never going to have to worry, and there are parts where you're going to have to look over your shoulder.
Can I come in with a comment about the crime rate in London? Because it's not only the actual rate, it is the increase in that rate. If the rate of crime is increasing, even if it's lower than somewhere else, if it is increasing rapidly, you've got to ask yourself why. You've got to understand what is driving that, or what is allowing it to happen, and you've got to address that, because clearly something going wrong. The other thing is that even if crime rates aren't high, if the public perception of crime is such that the public are fearful of it, then you have a social problem as well, and that can spill out into all sorts of things if there are different communities that are blamed for this or that and the other. Now, so perception is part of the problem, and the actual rate of increase should tell authorities that they've got a problem that they're failing to address. And I'm afraid in London, particularly the latter is the case. We've got an exponential increase in certain types of violent crime and assault, but we've got absolutely nothing being done about it. The authorities still haven't woken up to it, and that's a problem. Even if it is lower than other cities in the world, that's not the bottom line of it. It's that increase that's the problem.
I mean, 2,500 mobile phones stolen on the Victoria line alone, I think, last year. I don't know what it was on the whole tube. And British Rail putting up signs saying, sorry, if you leave your bike here, don't expect to find it when you get back. As he says, that's giving up, and it's giving the public the impression that there no longer is safety. So whether it's, true statistically that you're better off in London than you are in, I don't know, Dhaka, I think people know that things are not what they remember.
And I guess as well, Henry, we're discussing just reported crime. I mean, a very familiar situation is that people just don't bother reporting crime anymore because they know the police are too busy dancing the YMCA down at Brighton Pride, or knocking on people's doors for social media posts.
And let's face it, look, the police make no secret about the fact that they don't even investigate some crimes. So why report them? And if you're not even reporting crime, then the criminals have got a clear path, haven't they? They can do what the hell they want. We have got a serious problem in the United Kingdom with our policing. London obviously dominates in a lot of the conversation, but it's not just London. Birmingham, Newcastle, Leeds. You've got even Cardiff and places like that. We've got a problem that is growing in exactly the same way. And what it comes from, I think, is a politicisation of policing. What is happening is that the government has placed targets, law enforcement targets on police. They have placed, reporting on police. That really is it's orientating the police to reach targets or meet certain political expectations rather than focus on combating crime, keeping the public and property safe. So they've been taken off track, and in a sense it's not their fault. If politicians are going to start telling the police what they should be doing, then you've got a problem. They're always going to have to in some way follow that political lead. Because otherwise they've got, having a battle with the government, and that you don't want to bring your law enforcement into conflict, political or otherwise, with government. So we've got. I genuinely think it is now time in the United Kingdom for a strategic rethink on policing, because otherwise, what we're seeing with these shootings in the United States, and we've had them in the United Kingdom, but what we're going to see is a gradual falling apart of the law enforcement and justice system, because the same problem applies in the courts in the United Kingdom. We are losing control, and if it goes beyond a certain point, it will be very difficult to get it back. It's not too late now.
In the 18th century, men in Britain were usually armed to protect themselves against highwaymen. There were no police. When the state takes over a monopoly on violence, the promise is, we will protect you, we will take care of you. Right. And I feel like the state is failing to do that basic duty. They've taken away the guns and the right of people to defend themselves, but they're not actually protecting them so they can walk down the street in the middle of the day, or, God forbid, come out of a pub late at night if you're young and female, and safely get home.
Yes, and if you watch, there's some kind of criminal or somebody with malicious intent, they're going to find a way.
So Simon, would you be pro legalisation of guns in the UK now?
Like you, I'm smart enough not to touch that third rail. Britain does Britain, the US does US. We're very different countries, different populations, different histories, different traditions, but I do say both countries have the rule of law and the state has a monopoly of violence, and people need to know that they will be protected, their property will be protected when they go out in public, or else society crumbles.
And I sound like I have a stake in a pepper spray company, which I don't, but again, I think you should have the right to protect yourself in a way that's non-fatal, like a pepper spray. Some way, if you can't protect yourself, you are vulnerable, particularly as a woman. If
you're just tuning into The Late Show Live on GB News, maybe you've been out tonight at your Christmas parties or whatever else. Actually, it was the GB News Christmas party tonight. Maybe there's a few colleagues tuning in. The breaking news from America is there's been a mass shooting at Brown University in Rhode Island. Geographically, if you're not familiar, Rhode Island is pretty much sandwiched between New York and Boston. Unfortunately, we can confirm 2 people have died. There's 2 dead, and there's 8 who were in a critical condition in hospital. One of those, I believe, now is stable, but 2 have been dead. And crucially, the gunman is still on the loose. There's an active live manhunt now. We don't know where the gunman is. The authorities are looking for him. They describe him only as a male dressed in all black. He left the university campus on foot, and students and locals in Rhode Island, in Providence, Rhode Island, are being encouraged to stay in their houses, stay in their homes and take shelter. Indeed, some students are still hiding in cupboards, closets, hiding under desks in the university. In the past few moments, I can also confirm that the United States Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, has instructed Secret Service personnel in Providence to provide support to law enforcement authorities after the shooting at Brown University. Simon,
Which supplement? I was just going to say this reminds me of the Boston Marathon bombing back in 2013, which is not far from Providence, only an hour or two, where they had a massive manhunt, thousands of police, tactical vehicles going block by block to try to find the Tsarnaev brothers, the one who escaped, and they ended up finding him in a boat, hiding.
I remember, yeah.
He'd been run over or shot, and he was not in great shape. But the manhunt was huge, and I'm really hoping that this guy doesn't get off somewhere into the neighborhood and have to be tracked down that way, because at least one policeman and 2 other people were killed in that.
We were talking also just during the brief break we had about other shootings in the US. I was saying to, I think, Henry at the top of this conversation, it's not surprising anymore as a Brit, or even to anybody, when you hear of mass shootings in America. You kind of raise your eyebrows. Doesn't make it any less tragic or horrific, but it doesn't really come as a surprise. We had Virginia Tech, Columbine back in the day, which is probably the most infamous, Sandy Hook, probably loads more you can reel off to me. What do we learn? What do Americans learn about mass? Do you guys learn anything? Can you take any solace from these events, or is it just the same old?
Each one is different. One thing about this one is that when the shooter is really crazy, like the guy who tried to set people on fire out, I forget what city it was, but just a couple months ago, they tend to get shot or give themselves up, and they want to die. The Texas shooter back in 1966, I think it was, he was up in a tower. He knew he wasn't going to get down.
And there was that song, that Monday. And I hate Mondays, yeah.
The Virginia Tech shooter, but Luigi Mangione, the guy who assassinated that healthcare executive, he was trying to get away. I mean, he had a plan, and it's just a different level of sickness. I mean, these are sick people, but they're not insane.
One of the things I did see one time was somebody proposed to legislate that you never use their name. I think that would actually change things to a certain degree that would be possible. For example, we would just call it Columbine shooter. You'd never use their name, and you'd use the name of the town, because sometimes, not in all instances, it is for the fame and it is for the glory. And actually, even the Mangione, he actually obviously is glorifying in this to a certain degree. As they said, he was smiling in court and asking, how popular is he now? And you saw people that were actually supportive of him. So I do think just using the name of the location and never using their name would be something that would be beneficial.
Okay, stick with us on the Late Show Live. We are going to take our first break of the last couple of hours. More to bring you on this story. Just to confirm, 2 have died, 8 are in hospital after the mass shooting at Brown University. Let's take a little breather, and I'll see you in a few minutes.
Do you still want me on this?
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice
first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good morning. Welcome along to the Late Show Live on GB News. If you're just joining us, you join us with breaking news coming out of Brown University in Rhode Island. OK, here's what we know so far. At 4:22 local time, PM here in America, Brown University in Rhode Island sent out an urgent alert warning of an active shooter on campus and urging people to lock doors, silence phones and stay hidden until further notice. The alert also told people to run, evacuate safely if they could, hide, or as a very last resort, they should fight. 1 person is critical in hospital, 6 are in a critical but stable condition, and 1 is in a stable condition. Sadly, though, 2 people have been fatally shot. They've been killed. A previous update was issued by the university stating that 1 person was in custody. That was since, in an air of chaos and confusion, that was since reversed, and we can confirm there is still an active shooter. Authorities are still looking for the perpetrator. An FBI spokesperson has also said that the agency has deployed resources to the scene, and agents from the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives are also helping out. GB News also understands President Trump has been briefed on the situation. Police, in a press conference some time ago, said they don't know exactly yet what type of weapon was used in the attack, only confirming that, of course, it was a firearm. A press conference was held just under an hour ago now, where this update was given.
I can confirm that there are 2 individuals who have died this afternoon, and there are another 8 in critical status, though stable, at Rhode Island Hospital. Those are the only injuries or casualties that we know at this time. But as I mentioned, and it's important to remind folks, these numbers may change. We are still in early hours, but at this time there are 2 deceased and 8 who are critical but stable at Rhode Island Hospital. Additionally, we do not have a shooter in custody at this time. There is a shelter in place in effect for the greater Brown University area. If you live on or near Brown's campus, we are encouraging you to stay home and stay inside. If you're not home at this time, we would encourage you not to return to your homes until the shelter in place has been lifted.
President Donald Trump has been speaking to reporters about the incident outside the White House.
So I've been fully briefed on the Brown University situation, what a terrible thing it is. And all we can do right now is pray for the victims and for those that were very badly hurt, it looks like. And we'll inform you later as to what's happening, but it's a shame. It's a shame. Just pray. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm joined by security expert Henry Bolson. Henry, thank you for sticking with us. Already, just hours after the shooting, the bodies are still warm, Henry, but yet the gun debate is erupting again here in America. As a Brit, I said to Louise Mensch a bit earlier tonight, I don't really want to get involved in the gun debate. It's none of my business. It's part of their constitution. But regardless, it's erupting anyway. What's your thoughts on the whole gun debate in America? Is America a less safe place than the United Kingdom?
I think no, not necessarily. No, it depends where you are, what part of what city you're in. You know, it's so variable. It is here in the United Kingdom, but and there is a great deal of thought in the United Kingdom that you know it's a bad thing to have large numbers of firearms in the public domain. I tend to think that you know it's part of the culture in the United States. It's not in the United Kingdom. If you would suddenly sort of allow people to access firearms in the United Kingdom, we might have a very different response, because people would sort of think, I can have some fun now. If you go to Finland, I know Finland very well, you know, that everybody has, most people have automatic weapons in their house and ammunition, but you get very, very few shooting incidents. So it's partly to do with the culture, partly to do with the whole attitude towards firearms as well. But I don't think, you know, I'm not going to comment on the United States in terms of firearms, because I think that's a matter. A lot of things, you know, we tend to get into debates about other countries and what they do and what they shouldn't do. And I'm a believer that actually it's for that society, that community, its leaders, its law enforcement people to work through and debate those sort of discussions, those sort of issues. But in the United Kingdom, I wouldn't be in favour of it, because I do think that it would lead to an awful lot of killings, simply because we are not a culture that is used to having firearms in society. And I go back, earlier on, before the break, we were talking about the monopoly on the use of force. If the public can rely on the relevant authorities, whether it's the armed forces or whether it's the police, in this sort of case, to exercise law enforcement professionally, effectively, in a rapid manner, without fear or favour, in an entirely equitable manner, and the public feels safe with that response to the threat or to incidents, then I don't think we need to go down that route. Point before the break again, we were questioning whether in the United Kingdom the policing is starting to degrade to an extent where the public no longer trusts the police, and that's a major problem. But I don't think they've got that in the United States. I think there's still, you know, the good law-abiding people still have a great deal of trust in the police in the United States. But maybe your other guests have got a different opinion. I don't know.
Simon, do people here trust the police? I mean, I guess it's such a loaded question. Excuse the pun. State by state, demographic, but the answer probably is poles apart.
Exactly. I mean, in the small town where we live in New Hampshire, the cop was fantastic when we ran the car into a ditch. I think most local people know their police personally. If you're in a big city, you know, there are some people who in this country want to abolish the police. They want to defund it completely. Zoran Mamdani has pretty strong feelings on that matter. So I think it really does depend on where you live. But by and large, I certainly do. I live in Washington, D.C. It's a big city. And I think the cops here do a great job, and they take a lot of risks to keep us safe.
Yeah, I you know, don't want to be a brown nose to authority, but I love the police here. I love the National Guard as well. I say hello to the National Guard all the time. I feel much safer seeing them on the streets armed. Some only have pistols, some have rifles. I was about to say SA-80s. They don't have SA-80s. What do they have? What guns do they have for rifles?
I think it depends on the force. Each one.
AR-15s.
Yeah, and don't forget, they put their life on the line for us. So I always thank them. I always thank them.
I think there's another thing as well. If there is a risk that if you introduce firearms, you know, people can protect themselves using firearms, then you're a very small step away from vigilantism. And you know, the public, even if they know how to use a weapon, are not trained in law enforcement. They don't know what legal powers there are out there, because that's not their job. You know, it's a difficult one to move around, and as I say, I think the answer does not lie in the United Kingdom in arming the public. The answer lies in ensuring that the public has every confidence in law enforcement agencies to keep them safe, and if there is an incident, to respond rapidly and in a highly effective and professional manner.
I'm just going to give another quick update for anybody just tuning in to the Late Show Live on GB News. There is some breaking news from East Coast America. There's been a mass shooting at Brown University in Rhode Island, geographically sandwiched between New York and Boston. 2 people have sadly died. There are 8 more in hospital. And I'm just reading the New York Post newspaper now. They describe it as a crazed gunman dressed in black who stormed an engineering building at the university, killing at least 2, critically injuring 8 others before escaping and remaining at large. That is the crucial point here. The gunman is still on the loose. There's an active manhunt now across Rhode Island and probably indeed now across the neighbouring states, New York, Simon as well. Which other states neighbour Rhode Island?
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I don't imagine he could have gotten that far that fast.
So what are we? 3 hours ago.
Well, 3 hours ago, though, it's 3 hours to New York from Rhode Island. It's 1 hour to Boston. He could be anywhere. He could be in Boston. He could be in New York. He could be absolutely anywhere. And 3 hour radius from there, he could be all the way across Massachusetts. Anywhere in New England.
Yeah, Henry, just going to come to you 1 second. A quick statement from the Mayor, Brett Smiley, who said, sadly, today is the day we prayed would never come. Paying tribute to the victims, saying 10 people were transported to a local hospital. The Mayor has said there's a lot of fear and anxiety. This is still early hours, before adding that law enforcement were actively looking searching the campus and the engineering building, Henry. The campus, by the way, is 150 acres. No small feat. It's a massive site, 230 buildings. So the shooter was last seen leaving the university site at 5 p.m, minutes after the shooting took place. But I guess he could be anywhere. He could maybe still be back on campus. Who knows?
It could be. I mean, one of the things about these shooting incidents, I mean, you asked earlier, what can we learn from them? There's another sort of reframing it. What can't we learn from them? And one of the things we can learn is that we can't learn very much because every case actually is different. However, these shootings normally take place in at a location that is familiar to the offender. With a university, it's a little bit tricky because, of course, the person might be a student or ex-student and a former student, and they might have come from almost anywhere. But in other cases, then they can actually be quite local because it's familiar ground, particularly the high schools and so on. They're local people. That's not the case in every case, but yes, in theory, this individual could be traveling rapidly and could end up almost anywhere. The likelihood is that he won't go terribly far because it's his patch. That's not a prediction. That's not an assumption. It is just simply an observation that, to think about. And I should declare a little bit of one of your guests just now said that these people put their life on the line. I declare a little bit of an interest because I'm a former police officer myself, and it is a feeling that I don't think you can convey to anyone when you are searching a building for somebody who you know is incredibly violent and has killed already. That is a very, it's a very odd experience. And I take my hat off to all of these law enforcement people who enter these buildings, who go towards the danger rather than away from it. And thank God there are people like that in our societies who are prepared to do that job and who have the professional training to do it.
Yeah, well said, Henry. And I think just by the very nature of the gun situation here in the United States compared to the UK, there's 6 guns to every American. I look at even traffic officers, traffic cops, who pull cars over. You see clips all the time online. They pull cars over, they knock on the window. Next thing they know, they've got a pistol or a bullet coming their way. So, goodness me, the bravery of law enforcement. Yes, you get some bad cops. Yes, you get bad apples. But on the most part, they leave their wives, their husbands, their kids in the morning, and they don't know whether they'll come back that night. And it's no exaggeration to say that. So, I tip my hat to them. I tip my hat to the National Guard.
I'm a former soldier as well, and I've done operations with the military too, live operations. And but that's a different thing. As you say, you get up in the morning as a police officer, you get dressed, you leave home. it's everything's domestic. You go to war. In many cases, that's what you're doing. You go from incident to incident to incident over whatever period your shift is, and often way beyond, because there's just the demand for you to do that. And you go home, you're emotionally and physically shattered at the end of that quite often. And for families who are involved in that, not knowing what life is like, or not knowing whether their partner's going to come home, it's not an easy life, and we don't give enough respect. I criticise the police here a lot. I've already done it on this programme, because not the individuals, but I think we are doing a disservice to police officers by the way that we and lead policing. But that takes nothing away from the bravery and the skills that these individuals have.
Well said. Henry, we're just going to take a very quick breather, a quick break. There's one comment on gbnews.com/yoursay I want to read to you after the break, so please hang on the line if that's okay. We'll continue this discussion. If you're just tuning into The Late Show Live on GB News, we can confirm there's been a mass shooting at Brown University in Rhode Island, East Coast America. 2 people have sadly died. There are 8 others in a critical condition in hospital. One of those is stable, we understand. Crucially, the key point here is the shooter is still on the loose. The authorities do not know where he is, and they are still looking for him. This is a live, active manhunt. We're going to take a very quick break. Stick with us on GB News. Back in just a tick with more updates.
Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good morning. If you're just tuning into GB News, we continue this hour with the breaking news, the sad news out of Brown University in Rhode Island. All right, here's what GB News knows so far. At 4:22 p.m. local time here in America, Brown University in Rhode Island sent out an urgent alert warning of an active shooter on campus and urging people to lock doors, silence phones and stay hidden until further notice. A previous update was issued by the university stating that one person was in custody. That has since been reversed, and we can confirm there is still an active shooter on the loose. The manhunt is still underway. A press conference was held just under an hour ago where this update was given.
I can confirm that there are 2 individuals who have died this afternoon, and there are another 8 in critical status, though stable, at Rhode Island Hospital. Those are the only injuries or casualties that we know at this time. But as I mentioned, and it's important to remind folks, these numbers may change. We are still in early hours, but at this time there are 2 deceased and 8 who are critical but stable at Rhode Island Hospital. Additionally, we do not have a shooter in custody at this time. There is a shelter in place in effect for the greater Brown University area. If you live on or near Brown's campus, we are encouraging you to stay home and stay inside. If you're not home at this time, we would encourage you not to return to your homes until the shelter in place has been lifted.
President Donald Trump has been speaking to reporters at the White House about the shooting.
So I've been fully briefed on the Brown University situation, what a terrible thing it is. And all we can do right now is pray for the victims and for those that were very badly hurt, it looks like. And we'll inform you later as to what's happening, but it's a shame. It's a shame. Just pray. Thank you very much.
President Trump speaking there around an hour ago at the White House. Henry Bolton is still with me down the line, security expert. Henry, before I let you go tonight, I just want to just pose one more question to you. Nick Sauter, who's a mega conservative influencer here in the United States, he's been posting on X about he can't believe there's no description yet, no image or CCTV picture of the shooter. The authorities have only said it was a guy dressed all in black. They can't give any other description. And Claudie on gbnews.com/you'll say has said, considering that everyone these days have phones and that no eyewitness accounts have surfaced about whether or not the shooter was recognised, people just can't believe, Henry, we haven't got any more details yet.
Yeah, I said earlier also that, of course, the police will be busting a gut trying to identify this individual so that they know exactly what they're dealing with. But I've heard a transcript, or not a transcript, I've heard a recording of the police radio messages during the early stages of this incident. And in that, it makes clear that the witnesses of the shooting described the individual as being Caucasian, dressed in black with a black mask, face mask. So, obviously the mask, well, we shouldn't, again, I'm not going to speculate, but that, if that's the case, of course, it is going to be more difficult to identify the individual. It will be a priority. I know there's always in these incidents, and it has been for the last few years, particularly in the United Kingdom, this sort of conspiratorial, it's happened in the UK where the authorities have suppressed information because they've been fearful of a backlash against a minority community or whatever it might be. We have no idea that that's the case in this situation. Absolutely none. And we shouldn't be speculating. And as I say, my information is that this individual had deliberately gone out of his way to try and mask his identity, which makes it particularly difficult. So that would be my response. It's not helpful to speculate.
Oh, yeah. OK. I mean, if he is Caucasian, I wonder how people knew that if he was masked up. But who knows? Again, we're just speculating. Henry, thanks.
It's difficult stuff. But the other thing is Caucasian, a white person, there are lots of white people, lots of white countries. The point is that this is an ongoing incident. The police are still looking for the shooter. And I believe that. And I believe they still don't know who this individual is in this particular case. We know of cases where that's not happened. As I say, the authorities have suppressed the information. But I don't think that's the case in this situation.
OK, Henry, thanks for your company tonight. Appreciate your contributions, and we'll catch up soon. Really appreciate you joining the show, Henry, with your expertise. Diane Spence is live down the line now from our London studio in the capital in the UK. Diane, good morning. Thanks for staying with us. Appreciate your patience. What's your take? Do you know any more?
No, I do know that from all the information that you've told us, which has been excellent, that obviously it was quite unusual because it's happening on a Saturday. You know, it's not a normal sort of work day for a university. There were exams happening. And I thought it was quite useful that they were putting a call out for people in the area to check, for example, their door cams, their doorbell cameras, their dash cams, because you never know if you're in that area, if you've actually picked up something that could be useful to the authorities. So I thought that was a really useful piece of advice. And obviously right now everybody's thoughts are clearly with the people who have been affected. I mean, like you said earlier, I can't imagine what it would be like to be somebody caught up in an active shooter event, or, you know, be the family member of somebody like that. So, you know, and it's still happening. So we have to remember that, you know, it's an ongoing situation.
Yeah, well said. And I was saying to Henry a bit earlier, Simon is here with me, Simon Hankinson and Hilary Fordwich in DC. I was saying earlier, Simon, again, I'll repeat myself, these things, unfortunately, these mass shooting events in America don't surprise anyone anymore. You raise your eyebrows and you say that's terrible, but you are really not surprised. But however, that doesn't make it any less tragic or horrific. People have lost their lives. People have been critically injured just a week or two before Christmas. One mother, Simon, revealing a text message from her son saying, "Mum, there's a live shooting on campus. I'm going to run. I love you." And we understand he's still barricaded in the closet, in a cupboard with multiple other students. Still students are taking cover because we don't know where the shooter is. I mean, could you imagine receiving a text message like that from your kids?
Both of my kids are right now in college. One's in college and one's in a college town. So I don't want to imagine.
How do you feel as a parent seeing a college shooting then?
I mean, it's horrific. You know, they're there to learn, they're there to socialize, to have a good time, you know, to be free and go about all hours of the night. No, I mean, shootings are bad anywhere, whoever the victims are, but when it involves young people, it's just, you know, another layer of tragedy.
And think about if you're on a campus and you're one of the faculty right now and you're a leader at one of these universities, what do you do in the future to keep your students safe? Because they all have student IDs, they have student security. I can tell you that the schools my children went to, you know, first my eldest son, there was no security, not even locks on doors, and then the younger ones, there's all these securities and they all have to have IDs and they all have to have, but still the shooter was in. Was this that somebody was nice and holding the door open for him? Was it that he is a student? We don't know. But what would you do if you were head of a security for a university? I don't know what other precautions you could take.
Yeah, the police, Diane, was saying that the gunman entered a building, all the buildings on the campus. It's a 150-acre campus, 230 buildings on site, and they said every building has a security card entrance system. They don't know whether he used his own card or maybe he slipped in after what they call foot traffic, because, as you said, Diane, it was a very busy evening. There was exams going on. So we just don't know. But, Diane, before I let you go, we've got a few minutes left. I want to ask you about how safe you feel in London, because Hilary Fordwich here was saying that she thinks Brits should be able to carry at least mace or pepper spray, which in the UK falls under firearm legislation, and you get banged up for up to 5 years for carrying it. How safe do you feel in the UK compared to, say, what you see in the US?
Well, obviously I feel much safer because a bullet can travel a distance. Let's be honest, a bullet is a long-range weapon, whereas because we don't have guns allowed here, if I'm going to be attacked, then a person actually needs to approach me. And I work at night a lot because I'm a comedian. I'm used to assessing a situation and trying to work out what is a safe way for me to, for example, get to my car. Quite often, I'm alone and I'm not exactly the strongest person you've ever met. However, I would say I do feel relatively safe, but I have noticed that over the past couple of years, it has actually got slightly worse. And there is a creeping sense that perhaps we do need to have, like, for example, we need to have better street lighting sometimes. You need to have that feeling that the councils around the country are actually looking after their areas, because the more that an area falls into degradation, the worse it gets.
Well said, Diane. Interesting conversation, maybe one to continue tomorrow. Thanks for your company, Diane. Appreciate it. Simon Hankinson, thank you for tonight as well. Hilary Fordwich, thank you for joining us. We'll continue this tomorrow on GB News Breakfast. Just as a one last update, 2 dead, 8 in hospital after the mass shooting at Brown University in Rhode Island. Our thoughts and prayers with everybody involved tonight. Continue the coverage with GB News in the morning on GB News Breakfast. For now, thank you for the last couple of hours. Thank you for sticking with us. Sweet dreams, good night, and I'll see you tomorrow from midnight in the UK. Good night.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. It's a wet start this morning across the north and the west as heavy rain continues to move in from the Atlantic. A drier but chilly start across southeast England. And looking at the picture for the morning, we've got outbreaks of heavy rain across Northern Ireland, northern parts of England into Scotland. The rain driving in through the day with some strong winds. The rain turning particularly heavy over southwest Scotland, northwest England over the next 24 hours or so. Met Office amber warning in force for the rain here. Some localised flooding is likely. So do stay tuned to the forecast and updates over the coming days. Some dry weather across central southern parts through the day, but generally cloudier overall compared to yesterday. But it is the focus of the rain through the day into the evening time across the north of the UK. So looking at the details across Scotland, a wet end to Sunday. That rain just going to be there all day. Same picture for Northern Ireland and also northern England. Yellow and amber rainfall warnings in force, where rainfall warnings also coming into force later across parts of Wales as the rain slips a little further southeastwards, but generally staying dry across southeast England, but on the cloudy side. As we head overnight, the band of rain just pushes a little further southeastwards. The rain really building over parts of Cumbria, for example, flooding expected here, and the rain also becoming heavy across Wales during the early hours. Drier though for Northern Ireland and Scotland, and turning cooler here, temperatures in single figures overnight and single figures towards the southeast where it does remain dry. For Monday, rain stretches from southwest England into Wales, the West Midlands, northern England through the day. It remains here for much of the day. Some tricky travelling conditions are likely. Either side of this band of rain, it's drier, a little brighter. A respite in the weather for Northern Ireland and Scotland. Here, temperatures a little cooler than recent days, but towards the southeast, still reaching around 12 Celsius.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but